All right, finally, before we dive into the next section where we'll be attacking authorization, we're going to just look a little bit at manual enumeration. So whenever I start attacking a new application, I switch on Burp Suite and I try to test all of the functionality that I can find. And this helps me achieve two main things. Firstly, I can review the traffic afterwards so I can understand how the application is working under the hood. And secondly, I can start to understand how the application is meant to behave, which helps when we're trying to find peculiar behavior that might indicate a security vulnerability. Here, we're going to take a quick look at some of the JS files in the crappy application. So I'm just going to log in quickly. I already have an account set up and I'm going to bring up the developer tools and I'm just going to move myself out of the way so that you can easily see. I'll zoom in a little bit. And we might want to go through, test all of these endpoints, see what comes up in Burp Suite. In fact, I'll just show you quickly. So we'll click through, click on some posts. We'd add some comments. I'm just going to do this very quickly. But you take a little bit of time to come through. Change video name. And then once you've understood all of the functionality in the application, you can come back to Burp Suite and you can see everything is mapped in here. So we can start looking at what are these API endpoints and what kind of data do they return. But really what I wanted to show you, and the main point of this video, is coming to the developer tools, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, come over to the debugger tab. And what I want to do is have a look through some of the files, and I'm not really trying to understand what's happening here. I'm not going to sit and do code review and dissect the code or dissect the JavaScript that's running in the front end. What I'm just looking for is information. So we can just drop down and we can see that there's a bunch of JavaScript files here, some utilities, location utils. This might have had something like a bunch of locations hard-coded in, but unfortunately not. We'll have a look in source. Just skim through some of these. Doesn't look like exactly what we're after. Let's have a look in static, JS, and this config.js. So we get some top level endpoints, so identity workshop community, so Java microservices, Python microservices, and Go microservices. This is actually really interesting and useful to know. So depending on the endpoint that we're attacking, we will basically need different payloads or potentially different exploits based on the underlying technology. Have a quick look in the index. Have a quick look in here. And this is basically unreadable. So if you have a file like this, what we can do is we can just Control A, copy, and then come to Google, just search for JS formatter. And you can choose any of these online JavaScript beautifier. Obviously don't do this if there's sensitive information or something like that in your code, or if this is like closed source application, don't go posting it to websites online. But let's just go to the beautify code and we can have a look through. And here, this looks quite interesting. We actually get a bunch of endpoints. So this is really useful information. So we could actually compare this to the Postman file that we got so that we know whether there are any missing endpoints that weren't included for testing. And this might save us a little bit of time fuzzing as well. So this is a really great find, and usually you can find information like this in the front-end JavaScript files. So that was a little bit of a whirlwind tour, and I hoped you picked up some useful tips on how to approach enumerating API based applications. Your methodology doesn't need to be complicated, but it really does need to be thorough. And I think that a lot of people make mistakes trying to do complex things when actually the simple approach is the best. It's just that the simple approach needs to be done properly. Now, let's start attacking some applications. I'll see you in the next section.